practice more.
To the average person, F-Zero is just Mario Kart without the items. But if you look past the colorful ships, you'll find a pulp cyberpunk world filled with gods, skeletons, and a protagonist who is actually an intergalactic bounty hunter who does racing on the side. There's a lore-heavy shonen anime, obscure spin-off comics, and a philosophical lock that prevents this series from ever coming back. You didn't ask why F-Zero is dead because you thought you already knew the answer. But the real reason involves a perfect storm of business failure and a creative team that vanished into the world of Yakuza. Captain Falcon, smash, hype. Everybody knows who this is, but nobody really knows where he came from, or why he's even really all that special. F-Zero's biggest enemy is the statement, "I don't know what that is."
What the hell?
That's where I come in. When I really sit down and ask why did F-Zero actually die, the first thing I have to admit is this series is brutally inaccessible. F-Zero looks like a normal Nintendo racer at a glance. Colorful ships, big tracks, futuristic cities, but the second you touch it, it stops pretending to be friendly. You're thrown into a 2,000+ kilometer death race with almost no hand-holding. The game expects you to just somehow understand boost management, health as a shared bar, how to corner without flying off into space, how to body check without exploding, and it doesn't really help that none of the games have any type of tutorial except for F-Zero 99. And unlike something like Dark Souls, it was never marketed as that hard game you need to beat to prove yourself. It was just this Nintendo game that quietly beat the shit out of you. So for the average person who wants to relax after work, it doesn't read as a legendary challenge, it just kind of reads as frustrating. That mismatch, F-Zero fighting against its cute Nintendo contemporaries with its more hard-edged presentation, and then absolutely savage difficulty with no cultural framing, is already a big strike against it, especially since Nintendo has historically been the gamer's option for accessibility.
Ooh, I got fucking rocked!
On top of that, F-Zero has a massive identity crisis in the public eye. For most people, the flowchart is, you meet Captain Falcon in Super Smash Bros, you see the Falcon Punch, and you follow him as the funny punch meme guy, right? Falcon Punch. And then you go, if you do go back to the original F-Zero games, he barely exists as a character on screen in like half of them. Meanwhile, in the actual expanded material, he's a gun-toting bounty hunter with a real character, real emotional story, really interesting rivals, and real drama that most people have never even seen. The lore is genuinely deep. You've got the old comics, all the character bios, the GX story mode, the anime that turns the universe into this insane cosmic wrestling match between light and darkness, but the only place that fully flexes that potential is the F-Zero anime, and almost nobody watched it. Visually, F-Zero's got a badass pulp comic booky style that is genuinely so awesome, but to be honest, it can't be expected to catch on the fans of Nintendo's bubbly top dogs. And I'm not saying that's like a bad thing, but Smash makes it worse in a weird way. See, Smash Falcon is out there posing, punching, screaming catchphrases, while casual onlookers perceive the real Falcon, quote unquote, spending most of his time locked inside a hovercraft. So casual players walk away thinking that the source material is kind of flat, when in reality the world is just absurdly over the top. They've never seen it properly, they've never had the opportunity to. But that incongruence in aesthetic between F-Zero and its Nintendo siblings could easily be excused if Nintendo properly pushed the series for what it was. That leads me to marketing, which has basically been non-existent. F-Zero has never even gotten a fraction of the push Mario Kart or Smash got. Most people not knowing half this stuff exists isn't even a fandom failure, it's a Nintendo failure. You can literally see the scale of marketing shrink as the series goes on. SNES game is arguably the most pushed, X a little bit less, GX still maintain that player base, and nobody knows GP Legend exists. When Nintendo did try something bigger, like the anime tying into its game equivalent, or the arcade F-Zero AX cabinets, they still didn't fully commit. The GBA games were released awkwardly and with little to no fanfare. This plot-reliant shonen anime got an English dub by 4Kids and released on the Fox box for some reason. They were dropping spin-off comics so obscure that I'm surprised I even know they exist. And Falcon himself never really got pushed as an icon the way he easily could have been. Nobody's asking for the next Pikachu, but at that point, Captain Falcon made even Samus look like a Pikachu. The later game's story modes certainly had the wit and camp and ambition, but not the gameplay versatility to sell how crazy this universe really is. So from the outside, the only persistent conversation left is F-Zero is dead. And to the people who only saw the later push, it probably did just look like another random future racer, not the fighting game's creativity disguised as a racing game that it actually is. Now, if the game succeeded despite its incongruent advertising, you know, that would be great. But it didn't, and all us hardcore fans are left to suffer. Over the whole life of the series, all of the games put together sold somewhere in the 6 million unit range. The original SNES game did decently well for a new IP, making up like over a third of, you know, all those sales. But by the time you get to GX and the anime era GBA games, each entry is selling less and less, to the point where you think it's an actual typo. Meanwhile, Mario Kart on the same systems is doing literal multiples of that. On GameCube, GX and Mario Kart Double Dash lived in the same ecosystem. One became a niche cult classic, the other became the second highest selling game on the system. So when Nintendo sits down and looks at a spreadsheet, what do they see? One racing IP that sells millions per entry and single-handedly moves hardware, and another racing IP that costs almost as much to make but will never come close to that return. From that lens in Nintendo's corporate eyes, gameplay differences don't matter. It's just the weird cousin that doesn't justify a modern budget. Then you stack Nintendo's own philosophy on top of that, and it gets worse. They have said outright they don't revive old IPs because fans ask nicely. Internally, the rule is basically, if we bring this back, what is the big new idea? And with F-Zero, Miyamoto himself has straight up said he doesn't currently have a killer hook that would make a new one worth making. They've already done super fast futuristic racing. Mario Kart 8 already stole anti-gravity. There's this feeling of, if we can't add some wild new control scheme or mechanic, why bother? Takeya Imamura, the guy who created Captain Falcon and designed a ton of F-Zero's world and characters, has also said the series needs a grand idea to come back. F-Zero isn't allowed to just be more than what it already does perfectly. It now has to justify itself twice, once as a business and once as some earth-shattering reinvention. There's also a more practical dev side problem that nobody really talks about. The dream team that made F-Zero GX just doesn't exist in that form anymore. GX and its arcade counterpart AX were this wild collab between Nintendo and Sega's Amusement Vision, the first of its kind. That specific mix of tech, arcade pedigree, and unhinged tuning is a big reason GX still feels insane today. But Sega reorganized their company in the mid-2000s. Amusement Vision got merged and reshaped, and those folks moved on to other projects, most famously the Yakuza Like a Dragon series. At the same time, Nintendo has become way more protective of its core franchises and does more in-house. So when people say just make another GX, it's not that simple. The exact studio chemistry that produced that game is gone. To hit that same bar, Nintendo has to either recreate the expertise internally or find a new partner and basically rebuild the entire F-Zero brain trust from scratch. For a series that they already think won't sell Mario Kart numbers. Do you see the problem here? Even if you ignore all that and just say, okay, so why not keep at least the old stuff alive? The answer there is depressing too. There is no clean, modern entry point that shows all of what makes F-Zero special. And I don't think that re-releasing the old F-Zero games on Nintendo Classics justifies enough new motion to get Nintendo reconsidering their business choices. F-Zero 99 is fun as hell, and it does bring a lot of new concepts to the table, but at its core, it's still SNES F-Zero. It doesn't show you the insane character roster, the full lore, the cutscenes, the 3D movement, the cosmic nonsense, and for a 99 game, it's definitely worth existing. I would say it's the best 99 game that's out. The amount of content they've added is staggering when you measure it on that scale. But a kid who stumbles onto F-Zero 99 on Switch Online walks away thinking, oh, it's that pretty fun retro racer with a lot of explosions, not this is a whole sci-fi death circus with gods and skeletons and cosmic wrestling matches that I would actively look into. And the last piece of this is the fandom itself. F-Zero has fans, super dedicated ones, but we're a quiet fandom and a loud internet. Look at something like Earthbound or Kid Icarus. Those series barely have any entries, but those fans have turned them into myths. You constantly see fan games, memes, essays, cosplays, people yelling "Give us Mother 3" every Nintendo Direct outside of the fandom's echo chamber. F-Zero doesn't really have that same constant obnoxious drumbeat. The request for F-Zero to come back has become more popular among Nintendo's echo chambers than the reason why it should come back itself. Inside the bubble, there's a bit of content, but a lot of it just stays inside. It doesn't leak into the wider culture often enough to make Nintendo feel the pressure. When most people of the mainstream associate Captain Falcon with "show me your moves," and we're over here yelling about snaking and foul play and shift boosting and the Legend of Falcon, it feels like we're talking to ourselves. And when your financial competitor is a franchise where your grandma knows Rainbow Road, being quiet is basically the same as being invisible. So when you put all of that together, ridiculous difficulty with no on-ramp, a public identity warped by Smash, weak marketing, bad sales, Nintendo's grand idea rule, the loss of the GX dev chemistry, no modern showcase, and a fandom that doesn't make enough noise, oh, they remember it. But what they see is a perfect storm of reasons why reviving it is a very risky luxury, not a priority.
What in the fuck? You sorry ass fat nigga! I'm just sitting here watching myself lose to someone who fucking is garbage. I wouldn't even be mad if this nigga was good, but he fucking sucks. This nigga sucks! Somebody hop in my lobby and body this fat nigga ASAP.